Now this Gopala Swami was like an ordinary man in the sense that he didn't change his clothes, he didn't wear saffron robes, he didn't have matted hair, nothing. But he was not married, he was single, he had a large family, and every once in a week in a homeopath's clinic in a place called Pujappare, at midnight he used to have some satsangs. And during that satsangs, even sannyasins in that area used to come and attend to this satsang. And he did not have any organization, he did not have any board, any name. Because his name was Gopala Pillai, everybody called him Gopala Swami, that's all. Many years later, I came across a book which is a collection of his discussions, satsangs, which was called, now I forget the name. Anyway, when I read that, it was in Malayalam, Arul Murigal. When I read that book, then I discovered that this Gopala Swami, this great person, was a person who had reached the heights of spiritual understanding and illumination, and trying to explain this in simple language to people. Now, Vedanta is a very highly abstract way of looking at truth. It's not for everybody. Now, Gopala Swami must be given credit for making it so simple that any ordinary man could understand what he was trying to say. He has quoted many wonderful books as he talked. One of them, which I remember very clearly, is what is called the Harinama Sankirtanam. In the Harinama Sankirtanam, it always is like a Sankirtana. Sankirtana means in the evening all the family sits together in Kerala and sings like a bhajan, Harinama Sankirtanam. And the end of every stanza is Hari Narayanaya Namah. This is how it ends. But before that, the stanza contains profound Vedantic truths, and Gopala Swami's most favorite sloka from the Harinama Sankirtanam was, it explains the essence of Vedantic thought actually. It explains what is the Supreme Being and what is our connection to the Supreme Being, and who are we actually in our true essence. Harinama Sankirtanam, which he was very fond of, that part was Kanninu Kannu Manamagum Kannu Adana Kanna Idunna Purul Tananna Riyumala Anandamendu Hari Narayanaya Namah. This was the sloka. Now, if you understand this, he has explained it so nicely, Gopala Swami, saying that, see, the eye of the eye, we have two eyes. If both my eyes are open and I am looking at all the scenery in front of me, but if my mind is not there, I will see nothing. The image will be there like a camera in my eye, but I actually won't be seeing what is in front of me. If my mind is in the Himalayas, then even though I am looking at the camera, my mind will be seeing only the Himalayas. On the other hand, if my mind and the eye are both engaged in looking at something, then I am actually seeing. So, the mind is that which recognizes what you see. Otherwise, you can open your eyes and see many things, but will not recognize anything. If you are in anesthesia and if your eyes are open, the images will fall in the retina because your lenses are there in the eye, but you will not recognize them because your mind is not there. So, the eye of the eye, Kanninu Kannu, Manamagum Kannu is the mind. Now, he says, suppose I find out the eye, which is also the eye of the mind, how wonderful and blissful it would be for me. Now, this is the whole essence of Vedanta, which means that truly we are not this body. We are in essence a spiritual spark, which is called the Atman, which is the witness, Sakshi, to everything that is happening. All our problems is that we mistake the body to be the true self, and the true self is a spark of the divine. So, such wonderful teachings were put by Gopala Swami in such simple language, and later on when he passed away, there is a story it's very interesting, told to me by my friend, the doctor, who was a neurologist, who is now a neurologist. Said he was admitted to hospital because he had some stomach problem. They wanted to operate him because they suspected something in the tumor in the intestines, so they gave him anesthesia. So in the middle of the anesthesia, after the operation was done, the anesthesia remains for some time. But just after the operation, while the doctors thought that he was still in the anesthetic state, he opened his eyes, tried to get up and said, "It is all over," and went back to anesthesia. It was quite a shock to the people in the medical profession because this never happens usually. And he passed away in the operation table. No elaborate samadhi. Of course, his samadhi is there in a place called Samadhi Totem, near Samadhi Totem, where you can go and see it even today. So such extraordinary people I started meeting almost on a daily basis, I should say. So now I will tell you another extraordinary meeting which I had. In Trivandrum, on the beach, near the Shangamugam beach, there is a tomb of a Muslim saint, and that tomb is called Bhimapalli, where lots of people go there. Now there is a mosque also there, but it is a dargah, basically a tomb, samadhi of somebody. Bhima, BV, is supposed to be the saint who is buried there. People who are possessed or so-called possessed, who are mentally ill, they are taken there and tied to the trees, and they are supposed to be cured after some time. So my grandmother, some of my uncles, we all went to Bhimapalli one day when I was a small boy, maybe 10 years, 11 years old. While we were in and when we came out, I used to be very frightened of the place because suddenly you see people screaming and jumping, saying we are possessed, please don't harm us, don't kill us, and things like that. So I used to be very frightened. So I came out of the dargah and I was standing outside the gate when I saw a naked man walking. He looked like a complete madman with mud all over his body and no clothes, and he was walking across, and behind him there were many people following with their hands like this. So I could not understand anything. I came out, then he saw me and he looked at me. Then in Tamil, extraordinary because we are talking about Kerala, in Tamil suddenly he said, Pavam, nalla paiyan, like that. And then he took some mud and sand and threw it like this at my feet, and he went off. I was quite astonished. In fact, I was frightened because I thought it was a madman. Later on, many years later, I discovered that he was a Sufi saint whose name was Kaladi Mastan and who used to be naked most of the time. When you say naked, that means he has no consciousness of the body. Like a baby which is born has no consciousness of the body, doesn't need any clothes. He was like that. Whenever people gave him a mundu, dhoti, he used to tie it and walk around the fisherman's colony. And some fisherman will come and say, Swami, mundilla, you open it and give it to him and come away naked. Such a person. And later on in life, I had some extraordinary experiences with Kaladi Mastan Sahib. I remember that once when I was, we will shift to when I was 16, 17 years. I went once saying that I will go and meet Kaladi Mastan, whom I had met as a small child. So we went there. I went there alone. I saw him sitting in front of a small tea shop, tea kade, hotel, and drinking tea, keeping it there, smoking a beedi or a cigarette, then throwing it off, again smoking, throwing it off, like a madman. And he was always laughing and talking to somebody. We cannot see anybody. So anybody would think that he is a completely madman. Sometimes I wonder if we are mad or they are mad. I think they must be thinking that we are completely mad, because we live in a mad world, while we think they are mad. Anyway, so he was sitting there in front of the tea shop, sipping tea. I went. There's a big crowd, so I stood around. Suddenly he saw me in the middle of the crowd. Inge va, he said. So I went and sat down. Most of the time nobody knows what he talks. It is neither Tamil nor Malayalam. It's simply a babble. And then he was, half the tea was drunk. If you look at him, his teeth, they're so black, you would think that he has even brushed his teeth since his birth. He was drinking that tea, half the tea. He put back half the tea into the cup. He gave it to me and he said, Kudi. So I was in a dilemma whether to drink this tea and get sick or to refuse to drink. So that hotel owner was standing next to me. He said, Kudi, drink, drink. So I drank it. Then again the same thing. Periya Thiridan, he said. Periya Thiridan, Thiridit Poidwan. Like that he said. So I thought, why is he calling me a Thiridan? I mean, I have never stolen in my life anything. So I thought, I must be a bad man, so he is calling me a Thiridan. Later on, when I met my master, Babaji, he suddenly reminded me once, he said, did so and so call you a thief? I said, yes. He said, do you know the story of Krishna stealing butter? I said, yes. Then he said, that kind of stealing is when you steal somebody's heart. He said, when you fall in love, what do? Do you go and ask legitimately, give me your heart? You steal it, right? I said, yes. He said, that is what he meant. Then only I was relieved that he was not calling me a thief. So, it's extraordinary that somebody should say like that to me. Anyway, I came away. Then I started practicing a lot of Hatha Yoga and Pranayam and all that. And one day something went wrong or right, I cannot say. There was a rush of energy in my system and I forgot where I was. I had gone actually to the seashore and I forgot. For many days I didn't go back home because I was not aware what had happened and I was wandering around the seashore, apparently. So the hotel owner where Kaladi Mastan used to sit told me that he found me one day in this state and he brought me to Kaladi Mastan, who was then not in front of the hotel, he was on the beach near the sea. So I believe he took an old bucket and filled it with sand and put the whole sand on the head, covered the whole thing and massaged, and after some time I opened my eyes and I asked him, where am I? So, which means that there was some connection between him and the experience which I had, or he was trying to save me from some extraordinary, the practice of certain forms of yoga and pranayam are fraught with danger unless you have a teacher, proper guide, because you are dealing with your nervous system, you are dealing with your brain, which is the controlling center of the whole body. So if something goes wrong here and there, it's a possibility that one might completely lose control of what's happening. So which is why they say always that there has to be a teacher, especially in such practices, who can personally supervise and see that nothing goes wrong. Anyway, so I was saved by him by throwing this mud on my head and saying, something he said, I didn't hear, but that's what the hotel owner said. Balan, said Balan, Balan, and put sand on the head. Woke me up and I opened my eyes and said, where am I? Then they changed my clothes, I took mundu and shirt and I went back home after 6 or 7 days. My mother used to always remember that, but unfortunately she is not there now, she is gone. So anyway, that was another extraordinary experience I had. Then the third one, which I want to say, I don't think I have mentioned these experiences in a very detailed way in the autobiography itself, this particular thing which I said just now. Anyway, now the third is about an extraordinary lady called Maima, who used to live in Kanyakumari. In those days, if you go and wander around the temple, there is a Kanyakumari temple. Below that is the Ghats, and there you find lot of rocks. You would have found a lady who you would have mistaken to be a completely mad person. Yeah, she used to be surrounded by dogs all the time. There would be a circle of dogs, and those dogs were her security guards. Nobody could go near her. If you go near, they'll all stand in a circle and growl at you. And nobody knew what she ate or what she did. She used to catch fish from the sea by hand, put them together, light a fire and eat it. Or if somebody brought any food, she would accept it from them, if she accepts at all, and eat it. Now, the first time I saw Maima was in, I think I was in college doing my second year pre-degree, probably. And then I went there looking for her because my friends told me that there is somebody like that. So I went there. I was sitting in a hotel having my lunch because I was very hungry when I found her coming. So the hotel man said, if you offer some food, she may take it. So I bought some food and she went off. Nobody actually knew what language she spoke in, but I guess it was Bengali. So I followed her with the food and the dog started barking. Then she said something to the dogs and the dogs kept quiet. So I went. I offered her the food. First she fed the dogs. After feeding the dogs, she gave me a little bit to eat. Then she ate a little bit of food. So I was confident, now I am safe. Then I sat near her near the rock and she just kept looking at me laughing. She was completely naked. She must have been around, she looked quite old, maybe 60, 70 years old, 75 years old. And she kept on saying some things which I could not understand a word. Finally, I only understood she saying, "Jao, jao." So I came away. I thought when somebody says, "Jao, jao," you shouldn't sit there. So I quietly came off. Now, that time nothing happened. I came back home in Trivandrum, and that night when I slept, I had a very strange dream. Now, in that dream, I am sitting under a big tree. I can't remember the tree. 3 roads are meeting, and the tree is in the middle of the 3 roads like a traffic island. And I am sitting under the tree, and in the dream, I am very, very thin, and like all bones are seen. I am sitting cross-legged in Padmasana and trying to meditate. Then from one of the roads, I see Maima coming. And in the dream, she is very tall, she is huge. And she has a stick in her hand and a small container in her, something she has. She comes. And then she asks me for food. Now, I have no food. I am myself in a kind of starving condition. I said there is no food. Then I search around, and in my dhoti I find a small container. In olden days, film rolls used to come in aluminum containers, long film rolls. So something like that, one container. So I open it, and there are 2 grains of rice in it. So I give the 2 grains of rice to her. She eats it. Then after that she says, "Close your eyes." So I close my eyes. She takes that container from me, puts it between my eyebrows and applies pressure. And then from here, absolute blissful feeling comes, and my whole body is in that very blissful, semi-conscious state, I must say. But that is not the end of the story, because when this happened, I woke up. And when I woke up in my bedroom, from then till probably the afternoon, till around 4 o'clock, even though the dream was over, the feeling of that bliss and that some kind of a drunken kind of feeling, like you're drunk, you're intoxicated, that feeling remained till 4 o'clock in the evening. So much so that my mother thought that I was sick because I could not have breakfast. I sat but I couldn't eat. I couldn't have lunch. So I went and lay down and enjoyed the bliss. I was enjoying, but others thought that I was sick. Now this continued till 4 o'clock in the evening that day. Third time I went to see Maima. There was no dog, nobody there. She was alone, and it was evening. I missed my bus and went very late. She didn't say a word. She just got up from there and embraced me and held me in her arms for quite some time. I was expecting that she's so full of dirt that there will be some bats, but there was a lovely smell like incense being lit. And she held me for quite some time, muttered something like moaning sound, and then suddenly let go of me and said, "Jao, jao." So I came off. So this is another extraordinary experience which came to me unasked. Not that I was looking for an experience, but things seemed to happen like that. Now there were many temples around this area in Trivandrum, and I used to go and frequent many of these temples, sit down in the evening, talk to them. By the time I was in college, so inside the fort there was the ashram of Swami Abhedananda. You might remember that I talked about him when I was a small child and he was walking on the main road with the kirtans going on. So it went on, and I used to go to meet him whenever he was in the ashram, to sit down and talk to him, and he would always advise me. One day I told him that I have picked up the practice of Kundalini Yoga by reading Swami Vivekananda's Raj Yoga, and I am doing some pranayam. So he got very worried. He said, "You don't do all that, you don't need to do all that. Bhakti is the best thing for this Kali Yuga. You just chant the name, sing the names, do kirtanas. Be careful, don't do all that." And he would never let me go without having food with him. I saw him like that many years. I learnt many things from him, especially on the bhakti scriptures, because every evening he used to have a small satsang. So I used to go and join the satsang, sit there, listen to him, and then he would say, then kalichittu ponam, keto, you must eat something and go, don't go otherwise. So like this my life expanded. I used to go to school and college, but my interest was not in the subject, which is why my sister became an IAS officer and I ended up running around the Himalayas. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So this was my life. Then every time I went and sat in the beach or in the evenings and looked up at the clouds in the sky, I used to always imagine the Himalayas. I never thought there were clouds. I thought there were snow-clad mountains, and there was this pull to go to the Himalayas. Meanwhile, I had read most of the literature available on these topics. Vedanta, Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, mostly without any help from anyone, but I think the help was there in the form of blessings from all holy men. Then, when I was 19 years old, I had just finished my second year in the college. The results had not yet come, and I decided that I will have to quit and go away to the Himalayas for some time. I thought that this particular setup in my home was not ideal to my spiritual fulfillment. I thought I need to go to the Himalayas. Perhaps somebody was waiting for me. Maybe there is a guru waiting for me. I was not sure, but there was something that pulled me irresistibly towards the Himalayas, which for thousands of years have been a place from where wisdom has come to this country. All the great sages, the Bhagirathi flows from there. Himalayas are well known in the Puranas, in the Itihasas, even in the textbooks on Vedanta. Many of the rishis taught from the Himalayas. So I decided I must go. Now I had some pocket money with me. Immediately, my only interest was that I went and bought some tickets to Delhi, to Chennai, from Chennai to Delhi, From Delhi to all unreserved, because you cannot suddenly get it. And then from there to Haridwar. The train used to go right up to Haridwar, Rishikesh in those days. Then I went to Haridwar. And a new chapter started for me in my life. Although I had to look for someone, I couldn't find someone for many years, but that is a completely different chapter which we have to take up separately and look into, of my days in the Himalayas, of going to Haridwar, of not having any money with me, of walking all the way 200 and odd kilometers from Rishikesh to Badrinarayan, walking in 20 kilometers a day at an average, and getting my feet all swollen and cut, and suffering sometimes for want of food. Now that is a separate chapter. I think we should start it separately.